All right, that's it. The boys have gone silent because they know it's showtime. That's right. Prime time showtime on the Prime Sports Horse Report. How's it going, Chad? Busy?
Yeah, it's Saratoga. It's Saratoga. It's there's never a non-busy week now for the next.
How about
Well,
never a non-busy day or never a
from
non-busy hour for
from
Chet?
Saratoga to the Queen on September sale all the way through the Breeders' Cup. I mean, it just basically stays busy now. I mean, it's our it's the heart of our season, right? The NFL they talk about after the midpoint, that Q3 when they split the schedule up into fours. This is the make or break. This is the playoff time. This is what everybody kind of prepares for their Breeders' Cup and for their big races. I mean, you got stake races almost every day. Obviously, we'll talk here a little bit about Saturday. We got three stake races at Saratoga on Saturday. You got the Diana, which is a prep for the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Turf. You got the Sanford, where we get to see some babies prepare for the run to the Kentucky Derby. And, of course, the Kelso, which is a prep for the Breeders' Cup Turf Mile. So a lot of Breeders' Cup implications, and it just kind of continues all the way through from now until the first Saturday in May. And the first Saturday in November, and then the first Saturday in May.
And I had an opportunity to take a look at John's namesake last week. He looked pretty damn awesome. How's that horse? How many starts? What's the name of the horse again?
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. Is how old?
He's 3. It was his third career start, and I got off the horse and he said, "The last horse I rode for you that felt like this was when Mind Your Biscuits broke his maiden." That was a long time ago. So big shoes.
If he's half as good as Mind Your Biscuits, everyone will be extremely happy.
Ironically, I only rode him once in the rest of his career.
What's the plan for Thank You, John?
Well, he's up here in Saratoga. We'll look to take our time with him and run him in the next logical spot in allowance race in August.
What's the possibilities for a 3-year-old that got started this late in his 3-year-old campaign?
Well, look, it's all just a work in progress, right? So obviously, you're not looking at races like the Derby. You just kind of take it each and every race as it comes at this point. Obviously he has shown improvement in all 3 of his races, and you just look to continue it through. And we're hopeful that maybe at some point the people at Fox Sports will be a little bit nicer to the horse.
Oh, really? They
were nasty. They were nasty.
What, you mean previewing the race last week?
Yeah.
Yeah, for the entire 25 minutes.
Non-stop. The horse was bet down to 6-5, and they just couldn't deal with it. They're extremely jealous of Chad. They're not nice people.
Oh.
And that's a story for another time.
Okay. Well,
anytime they want to go handicap horse for horse, we're more than willing to. John and myself and you, Greg, against 3 of their finest, and we'll go head to head for charity anytime they want.
Bring the handicap bowl.
Bring it on.
Okay, so this week, as you mentioned, we have. I tell you what, we're going to talk about the big race that we're talking about, is Saratoga Race 9. That's the one that that's our main race. That's the Kelso Stakes. Before we get into the Kelso Stakes, we're also going to talk about race 5, which is the race that Chad has another horse in. But before we do that, you mentioned the Diana, Chad, and that is just not. That is just some strange field of 5 horses and 4 owned or 4 being trained by Chad Brown.
He did it last year, by the way, and he won with the longest shot. He also had like 4 or 5 horses.
In Italian was that was kind of her coming out party.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's when an Italian became an Italian.
And she won at 8-1 in a 6-horse field where he had 4 horses also. So
okay. So
her only loss since that race was the Breeders' Cup, where she ran probably the best race of her life, running second. I mean, she's a nice filly, and her speed's not to be trifled with. I don't think people realize. So many times people think of turf races and they think of off the pace and these big closers like the Europeans. But in Italian's fast, she's not afraid to go fast. She can slow it up. She can go faster. It doesn't matter. She's a really nice horse, and in a 5-horse field with 4 of them are Chad Brown, guess what? They're not going to get in a pace duel. So she'll lead, and if anybody else comes to try and get her, they can try and get her. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's very, very simple. It's in Italian's race to lose, and she's 2-5 on the morning line.
Yeah, it's a bummer to have the Grade 1 race like that. So, also there is and you mentioned this one. There's another graded stakes race, and that is on race number 10. That's the Grade 3 Sanford for the 2-year-olds. So, who should we be looking out for here in this particular race, Chad?
I mean, look, this race starts with the number 9 horse Gold Sweep. I understand he's a 3-5 favorite. And, I mean, look, today was opening day at Saratoga. The money that they had in their Pick 5 pools was amazing. I mean, it's like 3 minutes to post, and there was $775,000 in the Pick 5 pool. So obviously, people are wanting to wager. If you're looking for a bingo square, a lot of people single Gold Sweep. He was as impressive a winner last time out on the Tremont as you'll ever see. He was a maiden still. He run second, and what turns out to be a pretty legitimate maiden race. First time out at Churchill, where the winner came back and ran second in a graded stake last time. The 3rd place winner came back and won. The 6th place winner came back and won the 5th place. I mean, it's just as loaded a maiden race as you could have come out of it. When I saw him in the paddock last time out at Belmont, it was funny because Steve Asmussen's main assistant, Scott Blasi, kind of hung around. And they had run a bunch of horses during the week, Friday and Saturday. They're big horses. And I was like, why is he still here on Sunday? Like, that's kind of interesting. It's not normal. And all of a sudden I saw this horse in the paddock. I said, oh, now I see why he hung around. And they won both. They won the filly race. The filly ran today. She was just so. But the colt was the real deal. He ran to his looks. He won by 9. Jose Ortiz was aboard that day. He remains aboard on Saturday.
And he ran a 9 on the sheets also. So.
He ran a 9 as a 2-year-old, making a second career start.
You don't see that often.
Now, the only thing is, though, when a horse runs a 9 as an early 2-year-old and comes back in 5 weeks, is there any concern with that, John?
Yeah, there's a big concern. When you run a 9 that early, very few horses do it, and very few horses last because it's just too big a number too soon.
But if he bounces to a 15, he can still win.
No, I'm not talking about the race. You're talking about his career.
Right.
I don't know what it's going to do to him, but listen, he's going to be very tough to beat, obviously.
Dickens is the only other horse that has a decent.
Is the only other horse in the race that has a shot at this point. That's correct. He ran a 15, and he's got more time off. And a 15's on a 9. A 9
he ran the same exact day. He doesn't have more time off. He ran the same exact day.
Okay.
Or a day earlier. He ran a day earlier.
Yeah, one did it in Florida, one did it at Belmont.
But Dickens only had that first start for 15.
Well, the Gold Sweep's first start means nothing. What does it mean? He ran the 9. It's his last race that counts.
The Dickens race was a sneaky loaded race. There was 3 or 4 horses that were really, really live in that race. And people like their horses. And there was a lot of chatter on Dickens that he had been training really, really well and had a couple of really fast works going into that race. So not only did he run a good number, not only did he run to the chatter, but he put away and pulled away from what was supposed to be a pretty good field first time out. A couple of really nice horses that were live in there. In fact, he ended up going off with 3-1, not the favorite, despite kind of the hoopla surrounding him. So, look, he doesn't have the sexy pedigree. He was a $20,000 purchase, but he obviously has shown a little bit of talent and a little bit of ability. And then the other horse I'd like to mention in here is actually going to be the number 5, Factor You and Me In, who's a 30-1 long shot. And look, he debuted in a 2 furlong race, which I don't recommend for a lot of horses trying out. And horses that won these 2 furlong races last year were not able to kind of see out a distance of ground. And he's going from 2 to 6, so it's not like 2 to 4.5. The horse was entered to run for a couple of weeks. The race didn't go. The plan originally was to run in the 2 furlong race and then to run him on the undercard on Kentucky Derby week in that race that they run on Thursday. And when the race didn't go, ended up just running at Parks. Clovis Green, who broke him and owned him and trained him with a partner, actually was pointing to selling him at the Maryland sale. So something a little bit unorthodox. Sometimes when they go to sell horses, they breeze an eighth of a mile and they breeze fast and they say, okay, this is where we're going to go. Clovis said, well, I'm just going to run him. And then you can watch the video of his race. He actually
And
had
he
to
got
breeze
paid
him.
for it. At least he got paid for that workout.
Right. So he just he galloped him, and he was hip number one, I believe, in the Maryland sale. So he was one of the first horse in the ring. He galloped for us before the sale. Looked really good, very professional, good looking, good moving horse. Actually, Clovis's partner ended up buying him out on $100,000 number. And I actually thought it was a little low. I thought the horse was worth a little bit more than that, despite the 2 furlong win and losing the condition. So he's a horse that has some early speed for whatever it's worth. Going a quarter of a mile, he had the lead. And he's one that I can see kind of working out a good trip here. Look, I think the race goes through Gold Sweep, even if he bounces a little bit. I think it's still Gold Sweep's race to lose. But there is a chance to make some money with a horse like Factor You and Me and Dickens from relatively quiet connections. Juan Alvarado has been kind of the private trainer in Florida for Arundel Farm, who owns this horse. He's going to run under BC Racing, which I believe is Arundel's son, Brian Cohen. For whatever reason, showing up as BC Racing in New York as opposed to Arundel Farm. But it's an Arundel Farm horse. Arundel Farm is owned by his father. So no real change, no private purchase in that. And Dickens and Jive the 2 horse, also a nice horse, actually got scratched in that race with Gold Sweep because he reared up in the paddock before the race and slipped and was an automatic scratch in the paddock, despite the fact that he was sound and he was okay. So I would look for Jive and Dickens to be live in there for connections that maybe don't take as much money at Saratoga as others. And a horse like Factor You and Me in a 30-1. So even though you have a horse who's maybe going to be odds on in Gold Sweep, there's money to be made here in exactas and tries.
All right. So that's everything but the 2 races we're going to talk about today. So let's get right to it. And we're going to start with race number 5. So have we ever done a race before with one of your horses in it, Chad?
Didn't know we were doing this one.
Okay. Anyway, the favorite is Mariachi, the 5-2 shot, who John so far in 3 races has a 12, 14, and an 11.
Yeah, I like Always Charming better than Mariachi personally.
Wow.
4-1 shot. The number 2 with Irad Ortiz Jr. on board, running a 12, 10, and 10 this year.
Yeah, this horse is getting good. There's no question about it. I mean, and at 4, I would rather bet the 2 than the 8, if I had to choose between 2 of them. But I'm going to try to get 19 oysters in.
I think
What?
I know there's something to be said about recency, and I understand that Always Charming has run well. And I hate talking about races that I'm in because I feel like if you pick against one of them, it's like the kiss of death, and you automatically put them in the winner's circle. But between Always Charming and Mariachi, look, you got to understand something. Always Charming has gotten good of late. I don't know where it came from. He was just he was okay. He was a claimer for a while last year when he started his career.
What do you mean? He was terrible. He was not, he got good though.
So, I mean, he had a long break. He's run 3 races kind of relatively close together. And I understand he's run okay numbers, but this race is much, much tougher than who he's been facing. I mean, when he beat Central Pride and Class AJ, win for gold, and even when he beat Mariachi by a head last time, or nose last time, that was going 7. This race is back going 3/4. I prefer Mariachi. First of all, what Mariachi did to start his career was pretty impressive. Don't Lose Cruz came back and won a couple of nice races for the Schosberg Dave Dugan team. And then he came back and beat General Banker. And from that race, General Banker came back and won the $500,000 race. So that form itself held up pretty good, I thought. And he went to the sideline for a while. I watched this horse train. He was actually on the farm where all our horses are broken, and got to watch the horse gallop and breeze a few times when I was down in Ocala. And the horse really ran the part. Look, he wasn't with John Kimmel for a long time before he ran in that June 17th race. I think, in fact, he only chose like 3 breezes prior to running in that race. And he ran a pretty good race, getting beat just 3/4 of a length. I think he improves. I think he's probably better going 3/4 than the 7/8. And he's got speed and an outside post where he's able to dictate with probably one of the best speed riders in the room in Kendrick Carmouche. So I think the race goes through Mariachi, despite maybe the recency form of Always Charming, and Irad is Irad. But I think this race is dictated by Mariachi on the outside.
Mariachi will be half the price, though, of Always Charming.
Sure, he should be.
Okay.
Agility, the 5 is a 7-2 shot. This year, 13, 13, 13, and then ran a 10. So he's coming off the best race sheet number of his career, finishing third back in May.
Problem with this horse is look at his lifetime record.
Yeah,
He has
but only
14
one win.
Starts, it's not even the one win. It's the 6 seconds that makes him, he just doesn't want to get it done. And he figures to bounce off the 10 anyway. I don't think he's running better than a 13 to a 15.
He's run some good races, but I'm interested to see the work report on this horse because he runs the same way in his breezes as he does in his races. He loves to lose his breezes.
He gets beaten the breezes as well?
He used to get beat by who that's me every time they ever breeze together. I think, look, he's a fast horse, and we'll talk about a horse similar to this in the Kelso when we talk about the Kelso next. But I mean, when you're getting beat by Long Range 2 back, that horse, he's just not much horse. When you get beat by Writer's Regret and Whittington Park, and these are all horses who have gone on and run well. But at the time, they weren't really thought much of. I mean, you get beat by Joey Loose Lips. It's one of these things where he's a must use in your, if you're playing exactas and tries, superfectas, how do you not use this horse?
No, but you use him underneath.
He hasn't shown, that will to win, unfortunately, and I think that means something.
Yeah, no reason to box Agility. Just put him in second. What about the long shot Red DGP? It's almost my initials. Almost. 15 to 1 shot with
that's a reason to play him, Mello.
With Castellano on board for the first time. The last 2 races are 13 and 12, John. So what about this long shot?
You see, he has time between the 13 and 12. Now he comes back without any time. So to me, that's not good. I think he's bouncing.
I'm kind of surprised he ran a 12 last time. On looking at the race visually, on watching the race, on seeing the way the race unfolded, he finished 4th, beaten 5.5 lengths. I mean, can you explain that number, John, as to why it was so low?
No, I don't. That's the number they came up with. I'm not going to question their numbers.
No, I understand. I understand that, but I mean, his 2 best races in his career, the 2 times he ran for it, the 3 times he ran for a tag, for maiden 40, maiden 30. Those were his best races, and he ran really good to run second behind Aiden Sand, who had been disqualified and was already a winner, and then came back. And when he ran for the tag, he crushed. He won by.
He's not going to run well because he's coming back too quick, Chad. That's what Listen, he figures to react, and I'm playing him to react, even though he is 15 to 1.
And also a Z-Bar, not the 1A, but the 1. You got a little bit of a connection there. The 5 to 1 shot, Z-Bar, had 2 12s, second and third start, but then 16-15 the last 2 starts. So something happened, unless you really didn't like Belmont.
Well, the problem is you got to decide in your mind. You got to decide what number you think it's going to take to win. And I think you're going to have to run a 10 or an 11. And 2 horses for sure that could run the 10 and 11 are the 2 and the 8, right? I mean, everyone else, you're hoping they run a 12. And if they run a 12 and either the 2 or 8 don't show up, one of them, well, then they're going to get second or possibly win.
Well,
I think there are other horses that can run the 12. The 1 certainly has a chance. It's Linda Rice. Everything she sends out wins. She even won a race again today. She won the first race of the meet. So her horses continue to do well. And
is there not something to be concerned about? Every horse that Linda Rice ran at Belmont ran well except for this one. So to sit there and be like, hey,
that's a great point, Jed.
When every other thing is going right, and then this horse ran a couple of times and ran flat in both races. I mean, it had no excuse in that race 2 back. I mean, White Chocolate was in. 19 Oysters was in that race, and he was 18 lengths behind. Then ended up passing this horse on the wire. when this horse was sitting a relatively close strip on a speed favoring track. I don't like Z-Bear. Mission Impossibles are actually better. This horse screams grass, by the way. It's a Mission Impossible of a Cadianis mare. I think this horse can win when he runs back next time on the grass. I think he'll be really, really tough. But
She hasn't put him on the grass yet.
this horse is screaming to run 5.5 on the
send
grass.
her a note.
Can I take a wager that this horse runs on the grass next time he runs? I don't like this horse. I don't like this horse on Saturday.
I don't like him either.
And then the other Linda Rice horse ran a 15 first time dirt, came back second time, went to 17, but won the race.
So why are we going to like him?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Can I tell you something that's really funny about that horse?
Go ahead.
It's the full brother to the one.
Right.
It's full brothers. It's the 3-year-old and the 4-year-old. Literally, they're tag teaming us with brothers. This is like Irad and Jose. Now Linda's going to the bullpen, and she just has brothers running against us.
Yeah, but guess what? The brother, the 1A, she thought was grass and ran him on the grass first time out. That's crazy.
And then, of course, the favorite, or the horse that should be the favorite of the race, the 4, 19 Oysters. Talk about this 10-1 shot, Chad. 175,000 for 19 Oysters, 16, 24, and 16. So what's going on there with your horse, Chad?
Now he's been gelded, by the way. He's a new gelding.
It's painful to watch. I think this horse is he's a cool horse. We really liked him going into the first race, and he kind of ran to our expectations. And I was actually in Saudi Arabia. It was like 2:00 in the morning when he won. My team did a great job of preparing him and getting ready, and it was a good ride that day by the young apprentice Madison Alver. And everything that could go right went right, and he ran to our expectations that day. And when we came back, we always thought he was kind of a distance horse. We were kind of pointing him for the Albany. To be honest with you, in August, maybe the New York Derby at Finger Lakes and the Albany, we thought he was that kind. And when we stretched him out to the mile, as good as everything went the first time, it's as bad as everything went the second time. And to be honest, we didn't really have an excuse. I mean, he just didn't run. He just didn't pick up his feet. He didn't show anything on the day at all. It was very disappointing. And so since when we're running back next time, Gold Square likes to be active on Kentucky Derby. Unfortunately, we didn't make the Derby, so we figured we'd run this one on Derby Day undercard at Belmont, which is as close as we can get. And he came out of the gate, and he kind of broke slowly and then took himself all the way out of the race. Came flying, finished fourth, galloped out in front of the field. If you watch the head-on, it's actually – the head-on's more impressive watching it than the pan shot, actually. And he came out of that, and we found out that maybe the reason why he was breaking slowly out of the gate is when he would run, one of his testicles would actually ascend up high, almost into the stomach, into the abdomen. And so it would be uncomfortable for him, just like it would be for us if something like that happened. And so when he's standing still, they would be normal. They would look fine. And then at a faster pace, they would suck up, or one of them would suck up. And so it's not an easy thing to do, to geld a horse that cost $175,000 that ran an 84 buyer first time out and a 16 on the sheets. But the ownership understood, and they've been great. They've been great and great for the sport and everything else. And knowing what you have to do to make a horse, comfortable to give him the best opportunity to be successful. And he's come out of that gelding procedure well. We've been pointing for the Saratoga meet. He lives up here in Saratoga. We got a great jock, Tyler Gaffleone, who rode Mind Your Biscuits for me a few times, including the Breeders' Cup Classic. And look, it's not an easy race. You mentioned, the sheet numbers with 10s, 11s, and 12s. And when you have to face reality, the fact that you've run 2 16s. But we think with the fresh gelding, and he's still learning the game. Ultimately, he'll be better going a further distance of ground. I don't know that 6 furlongs is his ideal distance, but there's enough speed in this race. I mean, they should, right? Man plans and God laughs, but they should go very fast early. We should work out a nice trip, mid-pack trip that Tyler Gaffleone likes to do. He doesn't like to to send a lot of horses early on to the lead. Actually, if you watch his replays, he's kind of like a young Joel Rosario, and it's something that I'm excited for this matchup. I'm excited for Tyler to hop aboard. He's having a career year as a kid who every year just seems to have a career year, and excited to team up with him on 19 Oysters, and we'll cross our fingers and do well. But since he shipped up here on Monday, had a nice gallop this morning. Really seems to take to this track, and he was up here last year briefly. He came up here in August and had a few light gallops before we gave him some time to grow up, as he was a big leggy. Actually, a late foal. He was a May foal, so there was no kind of urgency on our part to get him going as a 2-year-old. So just kind of got over his baby stuff, and look, if he can improve off the maiden race, then you're right there. But we know he needs to run back to those numbers, because you're in Saratoga, and look, it's never easy to win a race in Saratoga, even if it's a New York bred allowance race or a maiden claimer or whatever it is. I mean, this is where it is. This is the elite of the elite, and coming here year after year. Today's the opening day of the Schuylerville. I'll never forget when we were blessed enough and fortunate enough to win the Schuylerville with the filly named off the tracks a few years ago. We appreciate and understand how difficult this place is, and the wins they mean more. They're more special, even though maybe the purse is just a few dollars more here than it is anywhere else. But it's the prestige. It's the walkover. You feel like you're going through the tunnel of a football game. Going through the paddock. The kids are there. This is the first time seeing horses up close in person. Especially to do it on an opening Saturday would be a big deal. So we're not taking anything for granted or lightly. We understand we're 10-1. We'll probably be 10-1, but we embrace the challenge and we embrace the opportunity. And we're not going to trade places with anybody going into this race, even as much respect as we have for the other competitors.
Well, the 16 first start is, as you said, impressive.
He's a new gelding. He can run anything.
Going back to the 24.
Horses go 16-10 after being gelded a lot of times.
Very good to come back to that 16. So, and like you said, now Gaffleone on board. So, yeah, why not?
I mean, it's the price. Ultimately, it's also it's a fact-finding mission. This is a chance to see, who he is and what he is, right? And so that's the opportunity. Obviously, he's unusual, because who orders 19 oysters at a restaurant? But sure enough,
he only does.
And the only other horse to mention is G Munning, because that's a Chad Brown first time. $275 they paid for G Munning. He's been disappointing so far. Third trainer already. Chad Brown first time with G Munning, the 7 horse.
Well, listen. I think it's important to note about this horse. So when everything happened with Saffie Joseph Derby week, and he was suspended and going through some things, Sean Flanagan, who spent a lot of money at the sales over the last couple of years, actually bought a horse for $1 million earlier this year, I think in the March sale or April sale. He moved the horse to Chad Brown because they didn't know if the horse would be able to run in New York with Saffie Joseph. So that's what precipiced this move. And look, he was as impressive a winner first time out as there is, but he's yet to kind of replicate that first race. And he's now had 9 cracks at a horse like Mariachi with 3 lifetime starts, or 19 Oysters with 3 lifetime starts. In this race where you have 3-year-olds running against olders, sometimes it's now caught up. Like earlier on in March and April, when the 3-year-olds take on the older horses, despite giving weight, had an advantage. At this stage now, the 3-year-olds running against the 4-year-olds, even though there's a few pounds difference, it's not a big deal. I think it's 4 pounds here, but the 3-year-olds now are on the ascent. They have a chance to be anything, where the 4-year-olds have kind of plateaued. If they're still on this level, it's mid 4-year-old year, unless there was an injury per se or something really specific, you get a little concerned. If they're still here, if they're still at this level, there's, it's kind of put up or shut up time. And I'll take the young bucks at this point going the other direction.
John, what are you going to go with?
Well, obviously I'm rooting for the 4. I mean, it's the family horse, but from a gambling point of view for people, I like the 2, and I would use with the 4, 5, and 8.
4, 5, and 8. And Chad, do you want to make a play or no?
No.
What did you say?
No.
Okay. Didn't think
Let's
so.
go. What's the next race? The 9th race?
The next race is race number 9, a mile turf, 4-year-olds and up. This should go off about 5:45.
Look, I think it does have to be noted since we are in Saratoga and it poured down rain and John was without power 30 minutes ago. There is a chance of rain today.
Saturday?
There is a chance of rain tomorrow. There's a chance of rain on Saturday. So I would think they'll do everything they can to keep this race and the Diana on the grass. I would worry maybe a little bit about some of the others, but just keep that in the back of your mind. We are picking this race ahead of time. We're picking this race on the grass. If some things
By the way, does 19 oysters like slop?
Well, oysters live in the water, right?
Okay.
Well, if there's any interesting notes, I'll definitely pass it along on Discord on Saturday. Okay, so by the way, Chad, you're now at Saratoga, right? You're going to be there pretty much stationed because I got you at Belmont Park on your label. Should I change it to Saratoga?
Yeah, she should probably change the label.
I think I should.
Does it make a difference? Just out of curiosity.
It's
the same Chad. What's the difference?
All right, the favorites are the 2 Annapolis and the 8 Casa Creed. So these are the top 2 dogs. We're gonna battle it out in the Grade 3 Kelso. Let's start up front with Annapolis, the Pletcher or Arad Ortiz combo, coming off a 9 last time out. Has won 3 out of the last 4, 6 out of 9 all told. First race, by the way, since November, that race. That was the Breeders' Cup disaster, but still ran a 9 in the race. 7.99 last 3 for Annapolis, John. What do you like or dislike about Annapolis, the 8-5 shot?
I don't like the 8-5, but the horse is fine. He had trouble, by the way, in his last race as well. He has 1 7, where Casa Creed's got a lot of 7s, and Casa Creed absolutely
And a 6.
And a 6 and a 5.
And a 5.
And Casa Creed loves Saratoga. 2 years ago, best race of the year, the 7 at Saratoga. Last year, a 7 at Saratoga. This year, Saratoga's coming up. The 2's 8-5, the 8 is 5-2. I would bet the 8 all day long at 5-2 against the 2.
Yeah, so far Annapolis has run a 16 and an 11 and a 10 at Saratoga.
Yeah.
I mean, Annapolis was also a 3-year-old last year, while Casa Creed has been much older the last couple of years. I think there's more upside for Annapolis. Let's not forget how good he was at Keeneland 3 starts back when he set the track record running against the older horses in the Shadwell Turf Mile, whatever it's called now. I don't know what it's called now, but he went 133 and won that day and came back and regressed a little bit running back in the Breeders' Cup Mile. That's to be expected after an effort like that. I thought the first start of his 4-year-old campaign and Derby week was impressive. Kind of well spotted.
By the way, he beat Casa Creed already.
Yeah, but I mean, look, Churchtown, that was second in that race, is a horse we've been a fan of on this show a few times, and came back and ran well from there. And Set Piece came back and galloped one of the few times Drew actually rode this horse well. So I think Annapolis kind of has more upside. I think Annapolis is the better horse. If I'm going head-to-head in that matchup, I definitely want Annapolis. Casa Creed, cool horse. What a soldier. Probably should have won again in Saudi Arabia. This is 2 years in a row that he had heartbreaking defeats. And Luis Saez was crushed on this one, getting beat ahead. Ran too good to lose, to be honest with you. But I still think that's his best distance, is the Saudi Cup distance, which is 6 3/4 furlongs. It's probably what he wants to do. I know he won the 4-star Dave last year going a mile. The year before, when he had the big sheet number, John, he actually finished 3rd. He wasn't even a winner that day. When he got beat by, it got stormy on that day in Set Piece. When he won last year, he beat the filly, Regal Glory, who would kind of seem like she kind of was off form a little bit. That was a weird race. It was a 5-horse field. Really, that race was won by Luis Saez, just kind of dictating terms. I don't really think that this horse wants to run a mile. I know he's won at a mile 3 times.
I agree with you. He's a better sprinter. That's why I liked him last time.
Yeah,
and he ran a 6 and I lost. So I know what you're saying.
I think, listen, take nothing away from him. He's an unbelievable horse who's made $2 million.
Here's the problem with Casa Creed. He's coming back closer than he usually comes. Usually he has a lot more time between races. last year when he ran the 14 off the 5, it was with the same time off. When he ran the 13 off the 9, it was with the same time off. So he obviously needs spacing between his races, and this race may be a little close. The reason I went to Casa Creed over Annapolis is because Casa Creed was 5-2 and Annapolis was 8-5. So it was strictly a price decision. But again, you could be 100% right, Chad, and there are crinks in the armor
Well, I mean, look, you can play it both ways though. You can sit there and say, look, I mean, the plan all along for this horse might have been to wait for the 4-star Dave. I mean, he's running it the last 2 years and he's run well. He won it last year. And then you see over here, he's got a bullet work last time on July 7th, 1 of 56 for a horse who doesn't work lights out in the morning time. And look, Bill Mont's a Hall of Favorite for a reason. He might sit there and say, hey, he's telling me he wants to run, so let's run him. So, I mean, I think you can look at it from both angles. I do think the horse is doing really well, and that's why he's in this race. But gun to my head, I still don't think he wants to go a mile.
Okay.
All right. And then the other 3 contenders, let's not sleep on Big Everest. Big Everest, Joel Rosario on board, won 4 straight, 6 out of 7. The sheet numbers actually have been pretty solid. If you take a look, started with a 15, July of 21, did not go backwards until this past April when he went from a 10 to a 13 in his first race in 5 months. Followed that up with a 9 at Monmouth last time out. So at 5-1, I think this is a horse that could spoil the party, John.
Yeah, he would have to repeat the 9, and the other 2 horses would have to regress. I mean, he's probably the 3rd best horse in the race.
Look, I've been a fan of this horse for a long time. I do like this horse, but I don't necessarily think that he wants to go a mile either. I think he's actually going better shorter. He enjoys making a lead and dictating terms, and I'm not sure.
He's not getting the lead so easy here.
If Philo de Ariana wants the lead, Philo's going to make the lead. And between Jose Ortiz and Joel Rosario, we know who would rather be on the lead. Joel Rosario is more than happy to take back, even though this horse often shows speed in his races, and Rosario knows him quite well. I mean, he won last time, and they interviewed the jockey, George Vargas, after the race, and they said, do you think this horse wants to go further? And George Vargas said no, which I'm not sure would make Christophe Clement happy to say that in a winning interview. But he was all out to win the Cliffhanger Stakes last time, and I understand he beat a good field. He beat a sneaky good field. Smoking Tea for Shug McGay. He's a really nice horse. James Aloysius, Danny Gargan's done a really good job with. He's won a couple of nice allowance races. This was kind of a step up for them. But Big Everest, to me, he's won 7 out of 12 races, but he hasn't won 7 out of 12 races. He's been well spotted by Christophe Clement. This is a step up to the show to see what what he's capable of doing. And this is a salty field. It didn't come up as a light race here in the Kelso. He's really got to step up his game, and I'm gonna wager against this horse, and he's gonna have to show me that he can beat me. I don't think that Saturday's the day for Big Everest.
And then the 6 and the 7, the 5 and 6-1 shots, Philo de Ariana and Anaconda. The 6 is a 7-year-old. The 7 is a 6-year-old. Philo de Ariana ran a couple of 9s last year, but just an 11 last time out. Ran a mile and has finished first or second in 5 straight. Well, Anaconda has only ran an 8 on turf last year. But we haven't seen anything since. Matter of fact, this year, John, we saw a 10 and then a 12 last 2 races. So out of the 5, the 6, and the 7, which one would you favor, John?
Well, how about none of the above?
Which one would you favor to beat each other?
I would take a 20-1 shot and try to get him in the mix, the 4 horse.
Okay, well, we haven't talked about him yet.
No, you haven't. As Chad would say, not so fast, my friend. But this horse is a little interesting to me. He looks more like a sprinter, I guess, but he's 20-1, and on occasion he pops a number. I don't really like. I don't know. I was just reaching for something different.
I mean, it's not often you see a horse ridden by Ira Ortiz 10-1 when he ran 8-3 back. The second was good. Two starts back on the all weather behind Anarchist, who came back and ran a really good race in the True North for Doug O'Neill. And he didn't run bad last time at 63-1, but I mean, he was 63-1. I understand Caravel was in there, Big Invasion, and stuff like that, but he was 63-1 in that race.
And Pratt takes the mount. That's really interesting too. But
yeah, that he was open and the amount that he was open in the race.
Yeah.
I don't think he takes the mount. I think he was open and got named on.
Okay, fine.
Philo de Arena is a brilliantly fast horse and has a world of talent. Look,
but his problem is he's in the race with the 5.
Well,
right?
Not really. I mean, the two of them aren't going to battle.
Okay.
The thing with him is he has soundness issues. I mean, my sources up in Canada tell me that he's a brilliant horse, and he's got a world of ability. But he's a 7-year-old who's run 11 times, and it's very, very difficult to put him together. But when Humpty Dumpty's together, he can run a really good race. And so
it's only 5-1 though.
Yeah. For that reason, he's a horse. He's a must use. I'm more kind of interested in him than I am in anybody else. And I think if he's right, third start off normally the old adage that I've always been brought up on, and this isn't, and you tell me, you guys handicap, so many races and everything else. Third start back off a significant layoff is always the best race.
Yeah.
Because when you have a horse that has soundness issues, I can speak of this just kind of off the cuff, whatever. Like when you bring a horse back off a long layoff, normally they're not 100% fit that first start. You're kind of giving them that first race, make sure they get their sea legs underneath them. Second time out, you're tighter, but you walk in the paddock for that second start, like, does he have enough condition? Is he ready? Is he ready? Whatever. He ran super that day. He got beat at neck by Emmanuel, who's a really, really nice horse for Todd Pletcher. And now you go, okay, now the cobwebs are gone. Now he's ready. He still has plenty of time between those two races, and he's come back and he has two just kind of sneaky breezes that are okay over at Belmont. Get ready for Saratoga, and I just got a feeling like Philo can run a sneaky good race here, and I think he might drift from the 5-1. John, I don't know that he's going to stay at that 5-1. What do you think?
No, you're right. They have other horses to bet, but Ortiz always gets bet. That's the problem. Ortiz is riding, so. I mean, he's okay, but again, last year he had 9s. This year he could only run an 11, but it is his third start back. Listen, last year he ran all of 5 times. 2 years ago he ran once. He's making his third start this year, which is a positive sign. I could see you making a case for him, Chad.
English B, the 20-1 shot, and Midday Image is the 30-1 shot. Those are the other two horses in the field. Velazquez on board English B ran a 9, 2 starts back, and Midday Image had 2 10s to start the year, then a 14 last time out, which was actually just a few weeks ago. 33rd race for Midday Image. All right, John, what do you got?
I'm going to stick with the 8 Casa Creed. I like him the best. I would use the 2 underneath and I guess 2, 5, and 6 underneath. Out of respect to Chad, he made a case for the 6. So 8 with 2, 5, 6.
Okay. Chad?
I'm going to take Annapolis on top here. He'll be my top selection. I do think a big race here from Philo de Ariana. And then, you got Casa Creed and Anaconda, who are both kind of come running late. So I think that Annapolis is the best horse in the race. So I would play this race a little bit differently than I normally do. I would just key him on top with exactas and tries, and then just use 5, 6. I would use 6, 7, 8 for second and third, and that's just kind of the way that I would play it. Try and beat Big Everest a little bit, and just kind of think that instead of going with using the 2 and the 8, sticking with my conviction that Casa Creed doesn't want to go that far, and just kind of singling the 2 on top, but using those 3 horses underneath for the exacta try.
All right, John, 8 over 2, 5, 6. Chad, 2 over 6, 7, 8. And again, in the 5th race, John is going 2 over 458. Next week, it's the Haskell at Monmouth. It's here already, the Haskell. Also, the Grade 1 United Nations is at Monmouth, and the Grade 1 American Oaks is at Saratoga. So, big day of racing next Saturday. So, I think we might actually keep this schedule as well during Saratoga's meet. Prime time recording racing for that.
Maybe do a
means
live show or two.
maybe, yeah, once we get comfortable and we know we can put this on every Thursday at 7:30, we'll do a live show. Unless, of course, we can do it next week with the Haskell. So we'll see. Should be a lot of fun. John, Chad, appreciate it.
Chad, see you in the morning. Thanks, Greg.
You got
Be
it.
well. Stay safe, everybody.